Hello, welcome to my channel Dharma Makes. In this video I will be sharing a mixed Stumpwork embroidery project. This idea started out with me having this ball of red yarn, and it's the only yarn I have. I don't knit or crochet, but I've been thinking about ways to be using it. And I found this method of creating flower petals. I don't know what to call it. It's a sort of crocheting with fingers. As you can see, I am using my fingers and a pencil to make loopy casts of the yarn. I first tied a double knot onto the pencil just to secure my yarn, and then I'm tucking in that little tail and I'm casting the yarn in loops over the pencil. I'm making a number that I feel like will make for the right size of petal. I'm counting 17 for now. And when I have the 17 loops, I cut off the piece of yarn. I thread it into a needle with a big eye, and I'm going to secure the tail by making a knot right at the end, and the needle is just helping me to actually get under the layers of yarn. And I pull it through once and then loop it back again, making sure that I'm going under all of the pieces of yarn. And then I pull on it to bunch it up and make this sort of petal shape. And just to make everything secure, I just make another knot. And there I have a little flower petal. I'm going to try and show you a close-up. So I tied my yarn on, and now I'm showing you exactly how I'm casting on the loops. So I'm using my 3 fingers. I'm sort of twisting it and pulling on it, and it sort of creates a knot, but it's not like a real knot, it's just a loop. But I'm making sure to align all of those knots on one side because that's going to be the nice edge of the petal. I keep doing it until I feel like I have about the right amount. Then I'm going to actually stop and count. I am making petals of different sizes, but I do want some to be consistent. So I'm making smaller ones and bigger ones, and I sort of want them to have the same number of loops. When I'm done with that, I just cut the yarn. I thread it on my needle once again, and I make a little knot at the base just so that the yarn doesn't unravel. Just a simple knot there. And then exactly opposite on the other side of the pencil, I'm going to just shove the needle under all of those loops, trying to make sure that I'm not going through them, but rather I'm going under them. It is a little bit tight, but actually the hexagonal shape of the pencil helps with having that flat side where the cylindrical needle can more easily snuggle in. And then, as I said, I make another loop and pull the whole thing off the pencil, pull on it real tight, and there I have a new little yarn petal. Of course, I'm making sure that it doesn't unravel from this side either, so I just make another knot. I'm glad that my camera is focusing. So I'll just keep going, and I'm going to be making a lot of these petals. I'm basically making two sizes. One of them has 13 loops and the other one has 17. I'm making more of the 17 ones, only a few of the 13 ones, because those are going to be the middles of my flowers. I have some pliers ready on hand just in case. Sometimes the needle is a little bit hard to pull through if I make the loops a little bit too close. And here I can show you kind of like my idea for making a flower with 4 of them gathered. They do end up looking like petals. And I keep going until I have 21 plus a few spare just in case. So this is an embroidery project primarily. So I'm going to place this piece of scrap fabric on a plastic embroidery hoop and tightening it really well, making sure that it's flat and taut and easy to work with. This is some sort of knit fabric, so I'm just going to be using a fairly large needle because of that yarn. Of course, I'm trimming the excess just so that it doesn't get in the way. I left all the tails on the petals for this exact reason. I knew I was going to use them to secure the petals to the base material one by one. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I am just sewing up and down around the base of the petal. Basically securing it to the fabric and then working the yarn away at the back. And when I'm adding a new petal, I'm threading the tail of this one into my needle and I'm securing it. I'm working it down to the base on its own, but I'm also going to make some stitches that are going to join these two middle petals together. Well, not completely join, just pull them together so that as they move they will still stay closer to each other. And now I'm adding a third, and I'm basically using the same method over and over again. I want it to look aesthetic, so I'm very careful at not having any mistakes on the right side, but the yarn is fluffy, so it's quite forgiving to hide any uneven stitches at this point at the base of the flower. As you can see, it's really starting to take shape. For the second flower, I want to make a smaller one. So this time for the middle petal, I'm actually folding it onto itself so that it looks a little bit more like a bud. And I'm kind of smooshing it together with the next petal, just freely in my hand before I'm securing them down onto the fabric so that I can pull them closer together so they hug like little flower buds. And of course there was no reason to keep both tails, so I worked it away, but I'm using the remaining tail to make sure that I'm going through the body of both little petals that were joined together previously. And with the same method, I'll just be building up my second smallest flower and my third largest flower. I'll just let you enjoy the process with a little bit of music now. And there it is. My final petal is added on, and now I have 3 flowers in a cluster. So in the end, I want to mount this piece on a permanent frame as opposed to the embroidery hoop. So I'm just marking the exact circumference so that I know how far out I can work my design. I will be using these beautiful silk leaves, and I will be using a matching embroidery floss. I want to embroider some vines or curlicues or whatever you want to call them. I'm actually going to draw on the pattern just to make it easier for myself. This white marker is going to come off the fabric quite easily with a little bit of water, and it's going to be hidden. I'm using all 6 strands of embroidery floss. I want it to look chunky because in the contrast with the really fluffy yarn flowers, I think I needed it. And I'm doing just a faux chain stitch. I'm not doing the normal chain stitch because I find it harder to do when I'm turning really tight corners, but the faux chain stitch just allows me to have really nice smooth curves on these little vines. And I'm improving the design a little bit as I go, adding little bits here and there. I'm making sure that my stitches are neat and that they all look nice and curly. Now to add the silk leaves on, I could glue them on, but thinking that this is an embroidery project, I thought it would be more honorable to actually just sew them on. So there's nothing fancy going on here. I'm using 2 strands of the same embroidery floss, which matches perfectly in color with the silk leaves, and I'm just sewing them on. At the base, I'm hiding my stitches under the fluffy petals of the flowers, and as I go higher up, I'm actually following the veins of the leaves. With all my leaves done, I want to add some centers to these flowers. And to do that, I'm going to be using some wooden beads. These have actually quite wide centers, and they were specifically made for stump work. And I've picked a very pale color of green that has still a similar tone, that yellowish green. It's going to match nicely with everything else I've got going on. And as you can see, I'm just wrapping the embroidery floss all around the wooden bead until it's fully coated. I leave a little bit of a tail on so that I can attach it, and I'm pulling it quite hard right into the center of one of my flowers. It's quite tight at this point, so having the pliers is definitely useful. It helps with not destroying my fingers. And of course, working away the thread very well. And I do the exact same thing for each following wooden bead. The large flowers will receive 3 each in the middle, and the small one will stay with just the one. I don't know what the name is for dressing up the wooden beads like this, but it's quite a frequent technique in Stumpwork Embroidery. And there it is, my actual floral arrangement is done. All that's left to do is to frame this piece nice and proper. So I'm using this rubber frame that sort of looks like wood grain, and this is a permanent one. So once I press it on, it's actually very, very tight, and it's a little bit hard to undo. And I'm of course trimming the excess fabric, this time really, really close to the loop so that nothing pokes out. And here we are, it's finished. This was basically a one-day project. It did take a lot of hours of work, but it was interesting and new to me, and I'm very happy with the results. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. I would like to hear your opinions. If you like these sorts of embroidery projects, I have quite a few more on my channel, so please consider visiting and subscribing if you want to see more in the future. I make all sorts of crafty videos, not just embroidery, and I upload every week. Thank you for watching. I hope you're having a nice day. Bye.